Welcome, everyone. We are truly excited to have this conversation today, having you in this platform again, Green Racing News, the platform where you can see and learn more about and share more news about the sustainability of racing and esports. And today we have a really good, interesting person to talk about, Julia. Julia, welcome.
Thank you very much, Juan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So, you know, e-racing and Formula E has been taking really bold steps into, making this not a fashion, but something that is truly in our veins. It runs in our veins, and we are strong believers about what we are doing. Uh, from our companies, DHL, it's really a strong sports sponsor of, innovations. But Formula E, what further steps, guys, are you taking in making this grid uh, and cars ever greener? There is a lot of debate, those conflicts lately about fossil fuels. There is no better time than today to talk about this. What is the event and the launch of Gen 3 making to make this an even greener grid and cars? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So I think what's unique about Formula E is that we were really created with a purpose at the heart of the championship. It's not that the world needed another racing series. The world needed a racing series that would really help us advance electrification on our streets because we have a wider challenge, which is mobility and climate change, all the emissions that mobility is causing, in the world. So Formula E was here initially to really be that platform to advance the technology around electric vehicles and has become more widely the platform for all companies that are innovative and want to test their innovation to support us living a more sustainable lifestyle to really test at the scale of the event and then expand on the city level, on a country level, and so on and so forth. And we use the sport to inspire the public and the fans to live and adopt this sustainable lifestyle through the vehicle, all intended, of the sport. And really, that's by inspiring people and really showing that there's a bright future, that they're going to be excited. Now, we are here, like now in this background, because we are about to launch tomorrow the new generation of our car. And this car really is a stepping stone in terms of the motorsport industry because this is really the pinnacle of what you can get in terms of racing, performance, but also sustainability. And that's the motto of Formula E. It's showing that racing and reason can powerfully coexist without compromise. And that's just what this car is about.
I like that word, the coexistence, because there is a transition. There is not an automatic shift into this transition, but also, as you were mentioning before, this is a platform to explore, to innovate. It's a laboratory. It's a laboratory
Exactly.
of ideas. And whomever wants
Technological.
to test, it's hydrogen, it's electric, it's multiple platforms. It's not mandatory that has to be electric, but it's the most efficient one. And when you talk about, infrastructure and deployment, rapid deployment, especially if we want to accelerate this. So thanks for that. Now, it's a trend. It's a strong trend, but still we need to inspire and attract more fans, more consumers to follow your lead. What is Formula E doing? What are the bold moves beyond? COVID is gone. We're moving ahead. You're launching tomorrow, but tell us more about that. How you can inspire? Because it's, let me put it in this way: Formula One, the sound, the excitement, and etc. But let me tell you, I've been in a Formula E race, and it's exciting. But tell us more about that inspiration. How you can bring more people? How can we create more followers and lead this race? Hopefully.
Well, there's two elements. The first one is that our sport is really exciting, and you've just said it, you've experienced it yourself. The fact that the drivers are such amazing competitors that keep basically overtaking each other. There's a thrill on the races that honestly it's not seen often in other racing series. So that's how you grab the attention. And that's what we've really been studying. That's through the sport that we attract the fans, and that's also thanks to the sustainability that we retain those fans. So we use the sport what is interesting is that it really works as a symbiosis. You get the fans captivated, you captivate their heart, their mind, their souls through the sport, and then the sustainability element grounds them because they really want to support something that is future facing, that is good for people and the planet. Even more when you talk about the next generation, they care even more about the sustainability credentials that the championship is carrying, but also the messaging that is being sent through what the championship is doing first house, because we have our house in order, and then we send the message on the fact that it's actually possible to live a more sustainable lifestyle, to recycle on our event, not to use plastics, to eat vegetarian food, and so on and so forth.
Cool. This is my mind. It's playing with me today, but this pilot of Formula One that is promoting the Formula E now. What is his name?
Promoting Formula E. So Lucas Di Grassi was or Jean-Éric Vergne. Some of them have been Formula One drivers.
So they are strong believers in this. It's a trend. It's not that. So the point is, you can leave speed, you can leave acceleration, you can leave safety, you can leave these healthy habits, because it's not only about mobility and face. It's a cool ecosystem of activities. But what are those areas that you're working on the most to make it this championship more sustainable? Because you already told us, okay, habits, food, green, plastics, but what else?
Well, we work also a lot on social aspects of sustainability. It's very important for us to use the power of the championship to make sure that we contribute to build more inclusive societies. One of the best examples of that is a program that we share with DHL, which is called FIA Girls on Track. Girls on Track is all about promoting gender diversity and inclusion into the motorsport environment, which unfortunately so far is quite male dominated. And that's showing inspiring young girls coming from diverse social backgrounds, because it's also normally an environment that is quite for wealthy people. So showing people coming from all social backgrounds that they can have a career in motorsport. They can decide to be an engineer, a mechanic, a journalist, a racing driver, of course, and many more. So what is amazing is that we take this group of hundreds more of girls and we give them series of workshop, a bit of aerodynamics, or a bit of, DHL is doing a really cool challenge on, stacking and organizing the freight within a container, and so on and so forth. ABB is doing some robotics. So it's really giving them perspective of the kind of careers they can have. They also get to meet the teams and the drivers. It's one of their favorite moments because they're really in front of, like the heart of what the championship is. And it's also giving them ultimately the possibility of picturing themselves in this environment. They are on track with us. And they see all the females working in this environment, in the team, in the Formula E organization. So there's no reason why, should they want to pursue a career in motorsport. And that's what really matters to us.
Love it. That's a resemantization of the word of philanthropy. It's not about doing, it's inclusion, it's society, we are not a new, this is a way of living, right? And we have been happily surprised in DHL as well about how that inclusion brings us different perspectives. And women, they bring the X factor, the angles of, in fact, we are moving our management from 60%, 70% of men to 40% of women. They bring these X factors, they are complementing and taking bold steps ahead of that of time, because women are more sensitive than us. And that combination of factors, LGBT inclusion, social backgrounds, different aspects, this is philanthropy. This is how I call and define philanthropy.
We strongly believe that you need to basically be a reflection of the society that you want to touch and to attract. So we want to talk to the new generation. We want to make sure that we are talking to people that care about inclusivity. So we need to be inclusive ourselves and make sure that we're going to change the landscape of the sport in which we operate. So, our new management has done a phenomenal job in terms of promoting more women into top management and leadership roles. And this is just the beginning, because diversity and inclusion is a series of considerations to take to make sure that really we have different facets, so that we're really going to reflect the society that we want to touch and we want to attract.
I'm really happy to hear that and having this conversation with you, Julia. It's you know back in my times when I was an F1 follower, Juan Pablo Montoya, he was a Colombian pilot, and he was flying in the belly of the freighters. You know, those type of efforts. Does you have tons of history, hundreds of history, Julia. We can stay here, entertaining our audience about
The whole afternoon.
that. But let me take you now to the next step. You have publicly spoken about measuring the emissions, right? First, and then taking an appropriate and targeted action to reduce them.
Yeah.
You cannot control what you cannot measure. That's what I believe is the philosophy that you have behind. But share some insights with us, please. How it works.
So, I mean, it's very simple. We've been following the recommended approach by United Nations, the climate neutral now, that's called. And what United Nations recommend is to measure, reduce, and then offset. So we've been measuring since the very beginning, first race and all the races following for all the seasons that we've been running have been measured. With these measurements, we've understood where the impact lies. The reality is 75% of the footprint is the logistics because it's driven by the calendar. We are a traveling circus around the world. So the big battle in terms of CO2 emissions is with the freight. And we've done amazing steps with DHL. One, starting to design our calendars in a cluster way, regions by region. Two, working at multimodal approach where we don't freight everything by plane, but we use also boats and trucks and so on. And then two, using biofuels to power little by little all the different elements that make up the freight cohort in a way that we use. But what was important to us was also to make sure that we would really stick to what is, let's say, sustainable for people and the planet. So back in 2021, we were the first spot in the world to align onto climate science through the Science-Based Target initiatives. And that means that we have very, very clear reduction objectives. 45% by 2030 or 5% per year since we committed to the science-based target. And that's a big undertaking because the reality is that all sport is likely going to grow in terms of importance. We are adding more and more races to our calendar, which testifies really the success of Formula E as a championship. But at the same time, our footprint is to continually decrease. So we are in this basically a moment where we need to be more and more efficient. And what leads us to that is the fact that because we are always at the intersection of innovation, then we go and find those innovators in their different industries that can offer us the technologies that will enable us to grow. So human progress, but in a sustainable way. And that's exactly the mission statement of Formula E, sustainable human progress, accelerating sustainable human progress, living the lifestyle you've known more efficiently with less emissions.
I like that summary because those actions can truly reduce those emissions. But let me go a step backwards in terms of measurement, because in our experience with science-based target, there is not an homologation, there is not a standardized way of doing this globally. We share the same philosophy with science-based targets, but in our experience, what's the problem? The accountability. Who's going to account them and how you're going to claim those credits as well. Have you, or could you share some experiences of Formula E on that, or do you have any thoughts about it?
So, I mean, science-based target is an internationally recognized initiative taking into account various, let's say, uh, stakeholders such as CDP, World Business Council for Sustainability, and so on and so forth. So, let's say, recognized stakeholders in that field. And the commitment is that year on year, you need to basically publish your carbon emission and showcase that you're on track. On basically in line with your science-based target commitment. So this is quite clear and straightforward. There's not much to argue. Either you have the right numbers or you don't have the right numbers. What is interesting is when you get to the offsets are not considered as a reduction measure in the science-based target. So offsets are only a voluntarily, which is the whole point of carbon offsetting market, a voluntarily step that you decide to take, which is a step that we took in 2020. We were again the first sport in the world to achieve net zero carbon. It was very important for us to showcase that 10 years before what United Nations is recommended, we were already we were doing it. Again, we are a young sport, probably more agile, also a young sport in terms of, backtracking all the CO2 emissions since inception. But still, the message was, if we are doing it today, then the rest of the world is able to do it. And although offsets are the last of the resource in terms of, solution, because it's not actually reducing, it's really kind of like offsetting the unavoidable. It's important also because this is a mechanism that is here to support the development of the countries that are, that have started their industrialization after. And the mechanism of this credit is that you are investing in developing countries, supporting, in our case, only renewable energy projects and generation to increase the proportion in the grid of these countries.
I really like this. It's a mechanism, it's a platform, it's a vehicle to do that. DHL is a strong supporting investor on those type of initiatives. And when you were, and let me recall your words, this is not offsetting. This is not an excuse to compensate. This is insetting, right? As you were talking before, sustainable fuels. Those type are really hitting those. When DHL was investing more than 250 millions on those projects in offsetting, 0.2% went straight to the transportation. If we, as a logistics company, wants to reduce our footprint, our carbon footprint, that is not going to be, it's not going to help us to achieve zero emission by 2050. So as you were saying, let's make it directly impact, a direct impact. And that is why we are in setting. And the reason why I was talking before about the measurement is because we realized that science-based target, I mean, the words, it tells itself, it's scientific. This is not a
Exactly.
speculation, right? So I'm happy that you are leading by example. I'm happy that DHL is behind that type of initiative. Not only DHL, but big companies. So this is not an effort of one or two. You started this years ago. I remember when the circuit was so small. Now you have long circuits. You know, the autonomy of the vehicle is longer and longer, right? So that
Absolutely.
dichotomy of, oh no, it's not going to last, it's gone, right?
Absolutely. And that's the whole point. I mean, here in Monaco, we're racing on the same track, literally the same track as F1, which a couple of years ago we were not able to because,
It's a
we
dream.
were worried about basically correct not being able to really give a good performance for the cars really. So that's how fast the technology evolves. In 4 seasons we doubled the battery capacity. Now we're looking at ultra fast charging technology for our cars. So really, that's how we use a platform to really kill one by one all the anxiety from the consumer perspective in basically buying or using an electric vehicle.
Love it. Love it, Julia. Really, really excited about this news. I'm truly looking forward to watch the racings and hopefully meet you in any of the races in the world.
Absolutely, we need to meet at one of the events.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope this conversation has been insightful for you, fruitful. Hope you can get a few thoughts here to take it and implement it in your companies and your worlds and societies. So please join us, stay with us, and thank you very much. See you soon.